Consequences are not punishment, they're just math. I want to start today by asking you a question. Have you ever felt like life was just out to get you? Like maybe you have some cosmic debt you haven't paid yet, or that the universe has decided to teach you a really aggressive lesson? We've all been there. Most of us talk about consequences as if they're deeply personal. We call it karma or fate, or we say, I just can't catch a break. We treat the world like a stern principal in a polyester suit, waiting around the corner to catch us chewing gum so it can slap our wrists. But I'm here to tell you that this emotional and spiritual baggage, this idea that the world is grading you, is actually what's preventing you from seeing the truth. Consequences are not personal. They are not emotional. They are not spiritual revenge from a universe that has a syllabus with your name on it. Consequences are just math. X equals Y. You make a choice and you get a very predictable return on that choice. Once you see the consequences this way, the math stops feeling threatening. It becomes useful. And when you're willing to look at the numbers instead of avoiding them, this is one of the most empowering tools you have. Truth number 1, predictable return. The problem is that we focus entirely on the action and completely forget to check the return. We treat our choices like they happen in a vacuum, but every choice is a transaction. Think about the small lies we tell to avoid a 5-minute uncomfortable conflict today. In your head, you think you've saved yourself some trouble, but run the math. The return on that lie is an immediate, subtle guilt that sits in your stomach, plus the long-term mental energy of having to maintain that ridiculously complicated story. You didn't save anything, you just took out a high-interest loan on your peace of mind. Or think about the fine, I guess, relationship. You date someone who doesn't really fit, but they're nice enough. The action is staying. The return, years of emotional confusion, second-guessing your own worth, and a quiet drain on your vitality. Even the 11 p.m. impulsive social media rant. It feels good for 30 seconds while your thumbs are flying, but the return is permanent digital awkwardness that you'll have to scroll past for the next 3 years. These aren't random attacks from the universe. They are predictable results. When you lie, you get guilt. When you avoid, you get stress. When you settle, you get resentment. It's not a mystery. It's a calculator. And the best part about a calculator is that it doesn't care who is pressing the buttons. It's not personal. It's just numbers. Truth number 2. Quiet consequences show up before the loud bill. Here's where it gets tricky. Consequences rarely arrive as a sudden, dramatic disaster. They don't usually show up with sirens and a fire truck. They are quiet. A quiet consequence is that subtle tightening in your chest when you know you're procrastinating. It's that little flicker of dread when your phone pings. It's that nagging internal voice that says, oh, I didn't need to do that. We are experts at ignoring these signals. We treat them like minor check engine lights in a car. You think, I'll deal with that later. The car is still moving. But in the math of life, those quiet consequences are actually just the interest on a debt you're accruing. If you ignore the quiet tightening in your chest for 6 months, it eventually compounds into a loud, unavoidable crisis. It turns into a burnout that puts you in bed for a week, or a relationship blowout that you can't fix with an apology. This isn't bad luck finally catching up to you. This is just the interest stacking up. The small errors in your daily math eventually add up to a very big bill. But if you learn to pay attention when the consequence is still quiet, you never have to deal with it when it's loud. Truth number 3, results don't care about your feelings. This is the part we don't stop to consider. Your intentions don't matter to your consequences. And I know we've been told our whole lives that it's the thought that counts. And for your moral compass, that's true. But in the physics of cause and effect, the world responds to the action, not the intent. Think about it like gravity. If you accidentally trip and fall off of a curb, gravity doesn't say, oh, he didn't mean to do that. I'll let him float this time. You hit the pavement regardless of your intent. If you accidentally overshare a friend's secret because you were just excited or not thinking, the consequence is that their privacy is gone and the trust is cracked. You didn't mean to hurt them, but the result is the same. This sounds harsh, but it's actually incredibly freeing. It means you don't have to spend your life hoping things work out because you're a good person. You can ensure that they work out by making choices that lead to the result that you want. Predictability equals control, and control, real grounded control, is the only path to peace. Truth number 4. Short-term comfort is a terrible deal. We are all guilty of making terrible deals with ourselves. We trade long-term peace for short-term comfort every single day. Think about the hard conversation you're avoiding right now. Avoiding it feels comfortable today. It lets you have a nice dinner and a quiet evening. But that comfort is a high-interest loan. The long-term return is a mountain of tension, second-guessing, and a relationship that slowly rots from the inside out. When you say yes when your entire body is screaming no, you are buying 5 minutes of social ease with a down payment of future resentment. When you stay in a familiar but draining situation because you're afraid of the unknown, you are taking out a lifelong, high-interest mortgage on your unhappiness. This isn't a matter of being brave or weak. It's just basic math. If you keep buying short-term comfort, you will eventually go bankrupt on long-term peace. You have to ask yourself, is this 5 minutes of avoiding awkwardness really worth 3 months of anxiety? The calculator says no, every single time. Truth number 5. It's not luck, it's patterns. No single choice exists by itself. Everything is a chain reaction. This is called pattern stacking. You avoid one small task, that's the first domino. The return is a little bit of stress. That stress makes you feel overwhelmed, so you avoid 2 more tasks. Now the stress is doubling. That stress makes you irritable, so you snap at your partner. Now you have a relationship conflict on top of a work mess. This isn't your life falling apart. It isn't a streak of bad luck. It's just the logical sequence of dominoes you lined up. But here is the beauty of the domino line. You can stick your hand in the middle and stop it at any time. You can break the chain. When you tell one lie, it creates guilt. That guilt makes you avoid the person you lied to. That avoidance damages the trust. You can keep letting those dominoes fall, or you can stop, tell the truth, and accept the immediate consequence to save yourself the long-term disaster. Once you see the line, you realize you're the one who set the dominoes up, which means you're the only one who can stop them. But here's the good news. You control the equation. Once you truly internalize this math, life stops feeling unfair. It stops feeling like a series of random attacks. It starts feeling logical, manageable, and steady. Your choices shape your outcomes, not your worth, not your vibe, and definitely not your luck. If your choices shape your outcomes, that means your life can change the very second you decide to change the numbers you're putting into the calculator. You have the power to pause. You can run the math in your head before you speak, before you click, before you commit. You can see the return before you ever make the choice. So you can solve a small problem while it's still small and quiet. Pick the hard conversation now to buy yourself 6 months of peace later. Walk away from a shiny distraction because you know the interest rate is too high. When you deal with consequences early, they become useful, reliable data points. Your life becomes something you can actually direct rather than something you're just trying to survive. So what's the next step? It's one choice, one simple equation, and one clear return at a time. You don't need a motivational speech or a new you. You just need to look at the math. And because this is so vital to actually getting your life back on track, I've linked a companion PDF below. It's a practical guide to help you run the math on your own recurring patterns. No mindset tricks, just pure mechanics of cause and effect. I'll see you in the next one.